In a bank vault in Quebec, Canada, a battered suitcase sat untouched for 85 years. Inside, wrapped in yellowed paper, lay one of the most legendary diamonds in European history, a 137-carat yellow gem that emperors had worn, that had survived revolutions and wars, and that the world believed was lost forever. But it was never lost. It was hidden. Hidden by a widowed empress who fled across continents with 8 children, carrying her family's treasures in that small suitcase, determined that no war, no revolution, no betrayal would take them from her. In early November 2025, 3 Habsburg descendants opened that vault for the first time. The New York Times was there to witness it. What they found inside didn't just solve a century-old mystery. It revealed the extraordinary story of Empress Zita, the last empress of Austria-Hungary, and the sacred vow of silence she imposed on her family for 100 years. I'm going to take you inside that vault today, and I'm going to tell you about the woman who saved these treasures and why their rediscovery matters so much more than their monetary value. The fall of an empire. To understand why these jewels disappeared, we need to go back to 1918. World War I was ending, and Emperor Charles I, nephew of Franz Ferdinand, whose assassination had ignited the war, sensed the end of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The Habsburgs had ruled for centuries, producing every Holy Roman Emperor from 1440 to 1806, and every Austrian Emperor from 1804 to 1918. As one historian put it, the Habsburgs are the greatest dynasty of modern history. The history of Central Europe revolves around them. But now, Charles recognized mounting threats from Bolsheviks and anarchists. He knew what was coming. The Russian Romanovs had just been murdered. Revolutionary forces were seizing royal properties across Europe. Austria was next. Beside him stood his wife, Empress Zita. She was just 26 years old, already the mother of several children, and she was watching everything crumble around her family. Charles made a desperate decision. He had jewels that the ruling Habsburgs had owned for centuries transported to Switzerland for safekeeping. Among them was the Florentine Diamond, a 137-carat gem admired not only for its pear shape and yellow hue, but for its illustrious history. Before the Habsburgs, it had been owned by the Medici family, the rulers of Florence. The diamond's allure only grew when soon after Charles and his family left Vienna for exile in Switzerland, it was thought to have disappeared. Exile, betrayal, and a widow's burden. What followed was a journey of heartbreak that would test Zita in ways no woman should have to endure. The new Austrian Republic enacted legislation in 1919 that expropriated Habsburg property and exiled the family. Charles and Zita fled to Switzerland with their children. Then, in 1921, Charles attempted twice to reclaim the Hungarian throne. Both attempts failed. As punishment, Charles and his pregnant wife were arrested and exiled to Madeira, a remote Portuguese island in the Atlantic. They lived in modest circumstances, struggling financially. And then came the blow that would define the rest of Zita's life. In March 1922, Charles caught a cold. It developed into bronchitis, then severe pneumonia. On April 1st, 1922, at just 34 years old, Emperor Charles died. Zita was at his bedside, pregnant with their 8th child. His last words to her were simply, "I love you so much." She was 29 years old, a widow, with 8 children, 1 not yet born, almost no money, and a world that had turned its back on everything her family represented. But Zita was not a woman who gave up. Born Princess Zita of Bourbon-Parma, raised with strict Catholic principles and an iron will, she made a vow. She would protect her children, and she would protect what remained of their heritage. That small suitcase of jewels. She carried it with her everywhere. A mother's odyssey. For the next 18 years, Zita moved her family across Europe, always one step ahead of danger. After Charles died in Madeira, she relocated to Spain, then to Belgium in 1929, so her eldest son Otto could study at the University of Louvain. Through all of this, Zita never let that suitcase out of her sight. But even in exile, danger found them. A dishonest financial advisor swindled the family, stealing many jewels. The betrayal made Zita even more protective of what remained. Then came the greatest threat of all. As tensions built across Europe, Zita and Crown Prince Otto vigorously opposed the growing Nazi threat. Otto even offered his services to Austria as it struggled to remain independent. When the Nazis annexed Austria in 1938, the Anschluss, Otto was declared an enemy of the state. The family was marked for arrest. Concerned that Germany was about to invade Belgium, Zita fled with her 8 children. At dawn on May 10, 1940, Zita's birthday, German forces attacked. The family escaped with hours to spare, ultimately arriving in the United States in July 1940. The Empress carried the jewels with her in that small cardboard suitcase. Finally, with American help, the family traveled to Canada. Sanctuary in Canada. Canada offered them refuge. The French-speaking province of Quebec welcomed the exiled Empress and her children. They settled in a modest house. Life was austere, but for the first time in years, Zita felt safe. My grandmother felt very safe. She could breathe finally. Her grandson Karl von Habsburg-Lothringen would later tell the New York Times. I assume that, at that stage, the little suitcase went into a bank safe and that was it. And in that bank safe, it just stayed. And it was here that Zita made her extraordinary decision. She told only 2 of her sons, Robert and Rodolphe, where the jewels were hidden. And she asked that, as a security precaution, the location be kept undisclosed for 100 years after Charles's death in 1922. The less people know about it, the bigger the security, Karl von Habsburg-Lothringen explained to the Times. In 1953, after the war ended, Zita returned to Europe and left the jewels in the care of the Quebec Bank. She died in Switzerland in 1989 at 96, never retrieving them. Before Robert and Rodolphe died, they passed the secret to their own sons, Lorenz and Simeon. But even Karl von Habsburg-Lothringen, the current head of the House of Habsburg and Zita's grandson, knew nothing about the jewels until recently. Over the years, I am sure all of us has been asked at one time or another about the diamond, Karl told the Times. For me, I was not even aware of the existence of the diamond until recently, so it was easy to answer those questions honestly. The unveiling. With the 100-year vow fulfilled, Karl's cousins Lorenz, 70, and Simeon, 67, contacted him in 2024 and revealed the existence of the suitcase in Canada. Last October, on a rainy afternoon, the 3 men gathered at the bank in Quebec, where the jewels had long resided. All 3 now live in Europe, and this was the first time they would actually view the diamonds. Standing around a table, Karl slowly opened the battered suitcase. Gingerly, he removed the yellowed paper in which each jewel was wrapped, eventually coming to the diamond itself. Still glittering, still arresting. The New York Times was invited to witness this historic moment, the first time in over a century that these treasures would see daylight. The treasures revealed. Let me tell you what was inside that suitcase. The Florentine Diamond, 137.17 carats of pale yellow brilliance. The diamond was wrapped separately from the others, but it could be set into a large, jeweled brooch that was among the items. This wasn't just any diamond. With the extinction of the male Medici line, the Florentine became the property of the House of Habsburg-Lothringen in 1736 through the marriage of Francis Stephen and Archduchess Maria Theresa of Austria, the parents of Marie Antoinette. The diamond adorned Francis Stephen's crown during his coronation as Holy Roman Emperor in 1745. Christoph Köchert of A.E. Köchert Jewelers, once Austria's imperial court jewelers, examined the diamond and attested to its authenticity. Its cut pattern corresponds almost exactly to representations in historical sources, he stated. All of this gives me certainty that this is the genuine historical Florentine diamond. But that wasn't all. The collection includes a diamond-encrusted Order of the Golden Fleece, the house order of the Habsburg family, founded in 1430 in Bruges, Belgium. Karl said he was most moved by this medal. That's something where I'm very much ingrained into the history of it and the role it played for the family, he told The Times. There were other treasures too, pieces connected to Marie Antoinette, to Empress Elizabeth Sisi, to generations of Habsburg rulers. Each wrapped carefully, preserved exactly as Zita had left them. 16 pieces in total, not the entire Habsburg collection. Some jewels remain missing to this day, likely stolen or sold in the chaos after 1918. But what Zita saved is miraculous. The mystery that captivated the world. For decades, the rumored disappearance of the Florentine diamond spawned wild speculation. One theory held that the Habsburgs, like the Romanovs after the Russian Revolution, had sold the diamond for cash, after which it was cut up and sold to unknown buyers. A more hopeful hypothesis suggested it had been given to a Habsburg servant who took it to South America, and that it was still out there, somewhere. There's even a Florentine Diamond brand of perfume now, described as an alluring and sophisticated fragrance. Some in the gemology world suspected the diamond had been recut to conceal its identity. When a yellow diamond roughly half the size of the Florentine surfaced at auction in 1981, many jumped to the conclusion that it had most likely come from the missing gem. Films and novels anchored their plots on its disappearance. But the real story, now told for the first time by the descendants of Charles I, is that it never really went missing. It was simply kept secret, out of respect for Zita's wishes and to protect the jewels from danger. A Canadian legacy. The Habsburg family has made their intentions clear. There is no plan to sell the diamond, and the family declined to speculate on its monetary value. Instead, they want to display the Florentine diamond and other jewels in Canada to thank the country for taking in the Empress and her children. It should be part of a trust here in Canada, Karl von Habsburg-Lothringen told The Times. It should be on exhibition in Canada sometimes, so that people can actually see those pieces. The family plans to place the jewels under the control of a Canadian trust and display them at a Canadian museum in the next few years. Within those years, you and I will be able to stand before the Florentine diamond. We'll see the golden fleece badge. We'll witness treasures that adorned emperors and empresses that survived revolutions and wars, that one determined woman carried across the world. But here's what moves me most about this story. It's not the monetary value of these jewels, though they're priceless. It's not even their historical significance, though they're irreplaceable pieces of European heritage. It's Empress Zita herself. I think she wanted to make sure that it was not in her lifetime, Karl told The Times of the jewels resurfacing. I have the feeling she was very glad that some important objects of the family are something that she had saved. That was historically very important for her, because she was somebody who was thinking very much in historic terms. A 29-year-old widow with 8 children and almost nothing to her name, who carried a small suitcase across continents through wars and revolutions, who never sold a single piece, even when her family struggled, who thought in terms of centuries, not years, and who trusted her descendants to honor a promise she wouldn't live to see fulfilled. She saved these jewels not for their beauty, but for what they represented: memory, continuity, heritage, love. the tangible proof that her family's story would not be erased. And she succeeded. Against all odds, she succeeded. So I want to know, what do you think should happen to these jewels? Should they tour museums around the world? Should they return to Austria? Or should they remain in Canada as Zita intended, a permanent thank you to the country that gave her family sanctuary? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you the way it moved me, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. There are so many more stories of remarkable women and royal legacies waiting to be told. Thank you for joining me in opening that vault today. Until next time.